Hello. Um, so, I had a video deleted recently by YouTube that was talking about the thing, the stuff and that. So, can't really mention that. But this is basically related to that. Like some people are noticing, nowadays that how like slavish and blind and stupid like people are, a lot of the population is, and how they just kind of like, as long as somebody in authority or that they consider their preferred authority says something, then they just, that's all they need. Like they don't need to, like, even if it's just blatantly untrue on its face, that doesn't matter. Like they'll still accept it as fact. And so yeah, that's true. But it's like, that's been true, like that's what Plato said, basically, that like 2,500 years ago, or whenever, 2,200 years ago, anyway, long time ago in Greece, he said that basically the majority of people are just slavish, brainwashed, and will actually oppose anybody who tries to um, shatter their illusions, and that reason is like demonized. People thinking for themselves, using logic, uh, speaking the truth, and so it's still true, and it's been true. Like I've been saying this for a long time myself, and it's true in politics, it's true in science. Like I study ancient history, I study like uh, you know pre-Columbian transoceanic contact, and I study Neanderthals and other hominins, and I study an array of different things like that, history, archaeology, etc. And in general, I'm going up against the kind of experts and their narrative on pretty much everything, which is basically why I do it, because that's kind of my niche. It's like, if the experts are actually right on something, which sometimes they are, for whatever reason, sometimes they'll actually deign to tell the truth about something. So I'm like, all right, cool. So that's, they got that covered, I guess. And then I focus on things that they get wrong, either deliberately or accidentally. And so, like, in a way, none of this is surprising, that people are such lemmings, because, and that people will just say such absurd things just because, the TV told them, or, whoever's their favorite newscaster or politician told them that, without actually looking into any of it, when a lot of it is just so obviously nonsense. Like, you just would just open your eyes for a moment and look at it honestly to like see that they're wrong, and so that's like, it sucks, it's terrible. It means that, but it's like, I've always been trying to raise awareness about that and how dangerous that is. And so I think now we see, the truth, that how dangerous it is. How dangerous it is when people will just do anything that the TV tells them to do, and they'll demonize and hate and dehumanize anybody that the TV tells them to dehumanize, or that their political kind of sports team, like the way people are about politics. It's like sports, like it's not about facts for a lot of people. It's about emotions, and it's about like, hey, we won and they lost, and and then they cry when they lost. And it's just like actual sports, it doesn't do anything for you. Like, people will cry and get suicidal and depressed if their team loses, even though it has no real meaning at all. Like, it's just the meaning that they give to it, because they don't have, probably, a lot of them don't have real meaning in their lives. So they just fill it with that. They fill it with sports. They fill it with politics. So it's a total another animal compared to like somebody who's legitimately political in a responsible way. Like who's public spirited and has healthy self-preservation and logic, and is trying to survey the evidence. It's totally different type of person. But just like if I held a political event and I said, hey, I'm gonna talk about facts and stuff, like a lot of times not that many people would show up. Like we did a protest. Keith McHenry and I protested Madeleine Albright when she came to town here in Santa Cruz, and lefty Santa Cruz, and we were like the only ones. There was like one or two other people there protesting with us, and yet if you go to some sports game, there's like 1 million people there. So people prefer that to like actual, they prefer. So it makes sense that there's more people who use politics just as like a sport, just to like root for one team, hate the other team, just because that's your team. And it's like they could just as easily switch teams. It's just like sports. Like the point is you root for your team and you hate all other teams. Which team is yours is kind of pretty irrelevant. People might have some reason like, well, I like this team because I'm from that town, or I like how their logo looks or something. And I'm sure some of these political like sheeple, like they have some reason for choosing one side or the other of the duopoly, but it's not a very substantive reason. I deal with this in archaeology, where I've shown like endless amounts of evidence that of cultural transfer from the old, quote unquote, old world, like Afro-Eurasia, to the Americas before Columbus and after the Ice Age. Basically, people who sailed across, and this used to be widely known. Like the founder of Mesoamerican archaeology, Alexander von Humboldt, I think. Well, anyways, his name was von Humboldt, and so yeah, he was basically the first, real scholar, archaeologist, anthropologist in Mexico, and he clearly saw the Egyptian influence there and other influences, and so did pretty much everybody else until relatively recently, maybe sometime in the late 1800s or early 1900s, when that became taboo and it became the dogma that Columbus was the first to ever cross the ocean. Now they're saying like the Vikings did it too, and they're now even admitting that they have there's genetic evidence that South Americans crossed the Pacific before Columbus. So but I mean, there's so much other evidence that's just so blatant. But the people who have shit for brains and like just, if the TV doesn't say it, then it's not true. That's like how they are. And that's like, I mean, it's hard to know how much they really believe the bullshit they say. But one way or another, like effectively, that's how a huge amount of the population is. And so I have to run into that myself, like instead of getting praise for like my work for uncovering more of this evidence, I tend to actually get, ridiculed and demonized even by these type of NPCs. And, ironically, a lot of the same people, like a lot of the conservatives who are a little more woke about like certain recent things, a lot of them are the most like blind to this kind of archaeology stuff. But I mean, it's pretty much across the board, like all the demographics. I mean, the one demographic who's most susceptible to these type of unorthodox truths, I would say, is just people without college education. I think people, once they go to college, it becomes such a part of their identity that they're part of like the Ubermensch, like they're part of the intellectual elites, and so they can't contemplate any idea that suggests that the intellectual elites are stupid and are wrong about like massive amounts of things. So they will just tend to defer to whatever academia is saying, even though everybody knows academia is largely enthralled to money, both government money and private money, and with a lot of strings attached to it. So, and also the recent events just show how dangerous like scumbags are, like people who have no compassion and who, like the people who already were like wanting like all the Trump supporters to die, or like, but just in general, just people who have no morals, no compassion. In times like this, that actually matters, and people are putting other people in peril, and worse. So like, I kind of always have been at war against deceitful people, basically liars and assholes, like people who are unjust and people who are deceitful. I'm always at war against them because I believe that nothing will stand, no house will stand if it's built on, built by them. Like there's no system of government or economics or religion that will really get you much of anywhere if you still are surrounded by, and especially if you're still dependent in any way upon just terrible people who don't have morals. Like morals are not cool, and that's why coolness is one of the greatest enemies of mankind. There's so many people who've done terrible things or refrained from doing the right thing because it will, based on coolness. And part of coolness is it's being detached, not having compassion, not having a heart, not being a human, basically. And so yeah, it's like so passé or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's indispensable, and you can kind of ignore how indispensable it is until times like this when there's no ignoring it anymore, and you see that people's depravity endangers those around them in a very real way. So, and just like the way, like the way people just defer to the quote unquote experts without even really researching it to find out if those really even are the experts or anything, but just like some kind of official experts. Like we already knew about this because these are the people who have been, you know, like they're just so obvious, like online. A lot of, you know, I'm kind of like an atheist in the sense, even though I'm kind of pagan in that, in a scientific way, but, you know, I don't believe in like a magic sky daddy that's other than like the sun and the moon and stuff like that. So I'm kind of atheist basically, but so there are a lot of atheists who are atheists in a really dumb way. Like they really do make it into a new religion, and then they're just at least as brain dead as the religious people, if not, and you know, and often more so. And so it's like I've dealt with so many of these. It's like the debunkers, you know, like the Snopes. I mean, Snopes is right about some stuff, but it's wrong about a lot of stuff. I think they got shown to be making up a lot of their stuff and plagiarizing and stuff. But there's so many people who treat them as gospel truth. So it's like these people were already getting pretty blatant, like before any of this. You know, they were the same people that were like always claimed to be the arbiters of science without having any understanding of or respect for how science actually operates, and how it innovates. So, you know, that's, it makes me think though, like recent events, you know, it makes me think of a study that I read years ago that said that people identify as liberal or left, they have a mechanism where they can see that their eyes follow other people's eyes like really like closely, and then conservatives, their eyes don't as much. So I mean, you know, they could kind of make the argument that like conservatives are like autistic and not and out of touch with other people around them. But I mean, a lot of this stuff suggests that it's more that a lot of people who identify as left, which I think most of them are pretty half-assed about it at best in terms of actual leftist principles, but those who virtue signal as leftist or liberal, they're just kind of following along. They're the you know, they live to mimic. And conservatives, even though they're, you know, largely Christian, religious people and super into tradition, supposedly, but oddly enough, at times they are more free thinking. So, for whatever reason. So that's interesting. I don't know what my eyes do in terms of that, really. I mean, I certainly have had times when I was more conformist and less, and, you know, disillusioned and etc. So anyway, I guess I'll end it there. It's hard to know, like the way they are lately, they might even ban me. Like I basically have 2 strikes and one more video that I guess one more video that's medical misinformation that they, or, you know, I mean, none of my videos were medical misinformation, but that was the accusation. So maybe it would have to be that. So then if I get a 3rd strike, I'm banned for life from YouTube. So I'm not mentioning anything about medicine just because, you know, I'd rather stay on this platform, and you know, there's no point of saying something if they're just going to delete it as soon as I say it anyway, much as I have millions of things to say about that. But you know, maybe they'll So I can't see how they could get me for that on this video since I'm not speaking about medicine. But who knows? Maybe they'll find some other reason to delete this video. They'll be like, you're threatening to sever the public trust from their duly anointed authorities and experts and yada yada. It was like what Hillary Clinton said, that accused Trump or somebody of being like 1984. She was talking about Orwell's 1984 and saying that part of it is severing the trust that the public has in their proper authorities, like the media and stuff, and their leaders. It was like obviously the total opposite of 1984. But yeah, anyway, all right, I'll leave it there. Take care, and good luck, and goodness bless. Yeah.